Samuel Musa is a fixed income dealer at FSDH Merchant Bank and is joining us from FMDQ Exchange Place in downtown Lagos. Samuel, good morning. Getting here on this show, a very interesting scenario we're seeing playing out at the Treasury space. This is not unexpected. Bring us up to speed. Where the yield curve is going.
Okay, good morning, Bosin. Yes, just like you rightly said, the Treasury bills market has really been very, very active. We've seen significant activity on the short end of the curve. So bills trading around 90 days and about 100 to 105 days. And we've seen significant investor interest. As a result, yields have dropped significantly. So discount rates are below 10%. And to a large extent, it is in tandem with what happened at the NTB auction yesterday, where the 91 days cleared at 9.74%, coming from 10.5% at the auction held 2 weeks prior to this moment. So the same activity has also been seen in the bonds market as well. We've seen yields drop below 14% from 14% levels last week around the 10-year paper to somewhere around 13.7% level. So we've seen significant investor interest across both the Treasury bills market and the bonds market.
The central bank signaling out here, Samuel.
Okay, to a large extent, right, the drop in the Treasury bills market could be attributed to the recent circular by the CBN reducing the amount of SDF from 7.5 billion to 2 billion. So there's a lot more liquidity in the system, and all that liquidity is going to investment in the treasuries. So that's essentially what's happening. As well, we from the last MPC, we noticed what the CBN was actually indicating, talking about increasing lending to the real sector, and then possibly also cutting rates. So we might see a case where at the MPC meeting next week, we have a marginal cut in rates or something around that.
So is that a thinking from you folks at FSDH Merchant Bank? Do you have an outlook?
Well, pretty much with what's happening in the market as well, just like I said earlier, and then with all the recent activities of the CBN. So the pointers are towards increasing lending to the real sector, dropping interest rates, especially with the continuous drop in inflation rates. So inflation dropped from 11.4% to 11.22. So to a large extent, it's giving credence to the central bank to actually consider cutting rates.
Okay, so what's the outlook today is a repayment of some mature treasuries. What's the size of what we're looking at? Would that be any significant change in the liquidity at the marketplace?
Maturing treasury bills today is about 72 billion naira, and they're looking at the existing market liquidity of about 260 billion. So that should take market liquidity to somewhere around 333 billion naira. In addition, we have the FX refund coming into the market today, so liquidity levels should be above 500 billion, although that should actually go out of the market again tomorrow as we see investors bid for the FX. So really today we would see a bit of mixed reaction. Activity is still in the Treasury bills market around the short end of the curve, like I said earlier, and then we might see a case where investors that have these Treasury bills at relatively attractive levels are willing to let go of this paper. So we might see a bit of profit taking as well. And then for other investors that don't have these papers, they might be willing to just take it up at these new levels.
Okay, let's leave it there for today. Thank you so much, Samuel Musa from FSDH Merchant Bank.
Thank you, Wilson.
You have a great day. Thank you. Let's bring in Temple Ashaju. Is the early opening calls, as it were, on the equities market. Temple, welcome back to the show. Let's wrap this together. What are the indicators saying as we start today's fourth session of the week? Is the market still in that very sluggish mode?
Well, it is still in that sluggish mode, because, of course, you know, there hasn't been anything. Victor Chazo explained the reasons why investors are, paying attention at the fixed income market. for now. But it doesn't mean that investors should totally forget stocks, actually. Reason being that prices are really low right now, and that's the advantage that some investors have continued to take in the equities market in recent times. If we look at the all-share index of the market right now, it's fairly up. We get to see that at market opening every day, where the indices will gain some 0.4, 0.05%, 0.01%, and then it goes back to the south. It's just that investors are looking at the low prices at this point, ahead of the re-entry of some FPIs, which is something that will bring about some gains for himself, some profit for investors. As we speak, you look at the likes of Zenith Bank, which was down to 12-month lows yesterday at some 18 naira 60 kobo. Some investors have taken advantage of that in early trades this morning and have kind of pushed up the price of Zenith Bank a little bit, because again, that's not a level that they've seen Zenith Bank, for example, in the past 1 year or thereabouts. So that's the kind of activity that is playing out in the market. Buy side is really low because the buy side had been on the high side last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, that was when we saw the buy side of the market really improving. But at this point, it's really low because, again, it looks like some other investors, especially the domestic players, retail and institutional investors, have put their money on a whole lot of these equities. And so right now, the market is really still cold. We still do hope that we still look forward to some kind of bargain hunting eventually, but a greater sense of bearish sentiment in the market, Bosun.
Yeah, Temple, isn't it very interesting when you have big cap companies like Seplat Petroleum talk about $700 million new investments, and the share price hasn't really moved on that news since Monday. It's surprising, isn't it?
It's surprising. Well, it's surprising in a way. Again, it's not so surprising. The reason is because yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's a JV with the federal government. The fact that they also have both debt and equity financial structure to get that done. It's a good news. You expect investors to put money on ground. But again, we don't have a minister of petroleum yet who will be saying things like confirming the federal government side of their interest in the gas business of Seplat. If that is available, perhaps then we will have seen some reaction, the positive reaction to Seplat. Quite a number of things on the fiscal authorities side that has really been expected. Perhaps that would have been the major points that would have given some positive reaction to equities. You just wait and let's see once the cabinet of the federal government is ready, or President Muhammadu Buhari's cabinet is ready, you begin to see how the market will react to all of this. And when we start hearing some policy actions, from the main players, then you see how investors will want to come into the market, because basically that is what the equity market reacts to. It doesn't have to really react to the monetary authorities that much. So once the fiscal players are in place and they start churning out some comments regarding what they want to do, the sector they want to quickly focus on, whatever policy they want to apply on that and all that, you begin to see investors coming on board to also put their money on companies that relate to such sectors.
Yeah, the common saying is fingers crossed, isn't it? So let's keep it crossed till tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning. Thank you so much, Temple Ashaju, from the Stock Exchange Trading Floor. I'll see you again tomorrow, Friday. Have a great day, everyone.